Yeah, we're live. It is 7:24. You know, a little bit late. But tonight I want to talk about two things. First of all, the video that I have up is how to add boost for beginners. So guys that, most of the guys that come here, at least on the live feed, the live crew, the two live crew, those guys are kind of know what's going on for the most, pretty much. And so, but I did a video for the guys out there that are new, and because we want to get those guys in the industry, we want to get those guys as part of this. So it's better to keep getting new guys in and not try to restrict that path or make it uncomfortable for them to come. That's why I do this live feed, so that guys can come here and ask questions about it. And come here and any question is good. It doesn't matter what it is. The simplest, whatever. We all started some, at the very beginning where we didn't know anything, and then we go in and we learn more. We talk to more people. We have more experience. We learn more, and so the cycle goes. But you got to start out somewhere. So what I did was combined a lot of the elements from things that we have talked about on the live feed, things that we've covered. What head should I use? How should I, what should I do with the turbo? What displacements should I use? We talked about camshafts a lot, or I talked about camshafts a lot, about, why I tend to recommend smaller, milder camshafts for turbo applications, because, you can always make the power, and whatever cam you put in an LS, that's going to gain a lot of power. Even small cams gain a lot of power. And so you can gain more, but, you get diminishing returns. And so you put a camshaft in, let's say you gain 40 or 50. And then the next one, you might be able to get a little more than that, but you're never going to get another, it's hard to get another 50. So, and the nice thing is the smaller cams tend to, they don't sacrifice low speed power. And so you got good turbo response. Just kind of a better deal. And then the same thing with cylinder heads. I don't recommend getting aftermarket heads for the 1,000 horsepower level and below. All of the things that we kind of covered here. So that's all up there. That video is up there. So hopefully we get lots of new guys that are watching that. And, for a lot of guys, especially the live crew guys here, they'll know the answers to most of that stuff. But the video is not for you. The video is for people that don't know it, just like for the people that go to school. It's not for the guy that thinks he's smarter than the professor. It's for the people that are not, the people that are there to learn, and that's what the video is about. But tonight we want to talk about also. I got a text from a guy, and he said, "Hey, look, are you interested in a 6-liter? I have one laying around." And so I said, "Yes, most definitely. I'm always interested in 6 liters." And so I think it's all stock. I'm thinking it's an LQ4. In fact, there's a photo of it, I think. So I should be able to tell based on the piston. Yeah, definitely a dish piston. Okay, so I'm thinking LQ4. So dish piston, 317 head, truck manifold, all that stuff. So that's always a good thing to start out with, because a 6-liter is always good. Bigger is better. But it got me thinking, and I wanted you guys to let me know here on the live feed, what should I do with that 6-liter? So what test? Let me know in the comments, and then even for the people that are not here live, that are watching the video later on, have a drink. Oh, thanks. I appreciate very much appreciated, and I definitely will. What I want to know is, what should I test? What I'm thinking along the lines of is if this thing is a runner and it's all stock, that one of the avenues we would want to go down, I think almost certainly, is we would want to show how we gain low speed torque. So we did a little bit of this in the past. I'd like to do it again. Let's find out, when we put a set of 706 heads in place of 317 heads, what happens? So And this time we'll do all the things that the people want me to do. I'll start the load at 2,000 RPM. I'm not going to start it lower than that, because your stock converter flashes that much anyways. But if we start loads at 2,000 RPM and run, I'm not even care about 6,000 or 6,500 or whatever. So, but if we go from 2,000 to 5,000 or something like that, 2,000 to 6,000, whatever, we should be able to do that. And so we can try certainly those heads, because that's a fairly common upgrade. I want to see what's happening there. And then, let's see what it does to torque way down low. Let's see what it does, with a stock cam, and then we'll try some other cams. Honestly, I think with almost any cam, depending on what cam's in there, I don't know what year this motor is, but depending on what camshaft is in there, I don't know that we're going to be able to dramatically improve power or torque at 2,000 RPM with a camshaft. I think that's going to be hard to do. I honestly think that you would gain more power from making the motor cold than you would from a camshaft at 2,000 RPM. That's going to be kind of hard to do. But long tube headers will certainly help. I don't think that rockers will do much there. Long tube headers, maybe exhaust. Maybe we could do something with, somebody had suggested doing a Y pipe single exhaust, and we could try that. We could try some of that stuff. Definitely a tune, timing, and air fuel. If the thing from the factory is rich and has no timing in it, and we add that, we certainly could improve it that way. Maybe we could take the 706 heads and do some porting on them. Definitely unshrouding the valves would certainly help with that 706, because it's a small chamber, not just a small chamber like in CC, but small in diameter. So if we can widen that out like I've done before in the past and unshroud the valves, and then we could get, I think we could get gains from doing that without having to resort to trading power down low. I think we just get gains if we did that. I could do a little, bowl blending or whatever, not anything crazy. But I think that all of that stuff might help. So it'd be interesting. So let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. If you think that that's a good idea, we could do boost, but I don't think having boost at 2,000 RPM, personally, I don't think that that's a good idea. But it's certainly possible. And if you did that, you would do a positive displacement blower if that's where you wanted your torque at. You probably could do it with a really small turbo. As we saw in the video where I did the 454 and we ran GT45 at it, you could basically have boost wherever you want. As you're loading in, it's producing boost. So if you size the turbo correctly given the displacement and torque output of the naturally aspirated motor, and you size the turbo small enough, you can have lots of torque there. And so you could get it done that way. That would be another way. But I think guys, for the most part, for the torque scenario, are interested in the 706 heads, because guys, they're all over at the wrecking yards. They're 862 706 heads. They're easy to get. All that's fine. So that's a possibility. Again, like I said, camshafts, I just, at 2,000, I don't think we're going to get anything. By 3 or 35, you're definitely going to get stuff. And so those are realistic RPM ranges. Everybody wants it down low. We could get that from displacement. We could also get that from compression, which we're going to get from the 706 head, but also from the valve size and the port volume, and that stuff. But we could get it from, if we did a piston swap, if we put LQ4 piston or replace the LQ4 pistons with an LQ9 piston, we certainly could do that. That would be compression. Displacement definitely would do that. I just don't know what we would get. Maybe we could put VVT on it or something. That, we could put the LY6 stuff in there. Maybe, I don't know if that might work. That actually would be kind of cool if we could make that work. Trying to think of everything that it would take to do that. Maybe that would be possible. But let me know in the comments. Let me know what you guys think. Okay, should I do a how to get low speed torque series with the 6-liter LQ4? We will start our poll. And I think I mentioned at the beginning, if you haven't, please go check out the video that I did on turbos for beginners. It's good stuff. Springfield's in the house again. That was a great video on the turbos. Thank you very much. Really appreciate these live chats. Very informative. Yeah, if you have questions, throw them out. And they don't have to be about whatever it doesn't have to be about the 6-liter. It could be about anything. It could be about any engine family, whatever. Canada's in the house. I hope you're good working out here in the Carolinas doing power restoration. Yeah, they're having a tough time of it back there. What header should I use on a 408 iron block stroker on a lowered 86 C10? I don't know about chassis fitment stuff, so I don't know what headers that would actually fit that combination. When we run stuff, we just run stuff that's sized for the primary and sometimes collector diameter that we want, and then the length, but it's not really chassis fitment specific. As long as it fits on the dyno, we can run it. How about 1/4-inch head studs versus 1/2-inch head studs, and what power output do you upgrade to? Are you talking about 7/16 versus half on the LS? I have never run 1/2-inch head studs on on any LS. I know talking to lots of guys that go down that route, but I just don't know. I don't know, given the structure of the deck of the, I just don't know about the thread structure of the LS. I don't know if that's going to be a thing. And I don't know if they're doing this with, I'm hoping that they're doing with aftermarket heads. But judging by what we did with your off-the-shelf LS9 gasket and CA625 7/16 studs on the block, like especially on a stock bottom end deal, something else is going to break way before you have to worry about 1/2-inch head studs, I think. Shark Performance. Is that how you spell carburetor? I have lots of carburetor testing up. The 6-liter in my truck, I like to do a cam on. I have cams for sale. Good ones for daily drivers too. Nitrous 6-liter. Have I tried that yet? I've run nitrous on every engine family and every combination. So I've run it on a lot on 6-liters and 5.3s and 4.8s and everything. Depends on if you want torque or high RPM power. Have a great night. Everyone is back on the road. Big nitrous 6-liter. I have a 12 Suburban. 5.3 has left the chat. I picked up 0862, thinking of doing the Truck Norris cam and milling. The head's 20 to be the equivalent of LS3 compression. Good towing. Do you have, as long as you have the knock sensor technology for the compression, that should be fine. Finally got my Kenny Bell blown built LQ4 going. Went to get it tuned, and it's fun at 8.5 pounds until the last pull of day when it dropped all fuel pressure. Why did it drop fuel pressure? Did you lose a pump or something? And when it dropped fuel pressure, did it hurt itself? A lot of times that if it gets lean and they let off of it, that's not going to hurt it. It depends on how lean for how long. A 2004 LQ4, your LOWBUCK truck cam, 706 heads, and the $80 BTR springs. That's a good combination. LS1 intake, do the clearance and stock throttle body. I'd like to see what to do from there. I think I would, well, if you have a clearance problem, then you can't put a truck manifold on it. Have you ever had LQ build where the intercooler or exhaust prevented making boost? No, I've never had it where it stopped boost altogether unless there was a really, really big leak. I have had, and I have a video up on doing an intercooler upgrade where we increase the boost and increase the power, and that can happen with a restriction. And I've done tests where we've compared different kinds of exhausts and different size exhausts after the turbo, and then also different size exhausts before the turbo. But if you get all the exhaust to the turbo and the turbo size anywhere within a reasonable range, it's definitely going to make boost. Alternate fuel 6-liter, NOS, ethanol. Yeah, I want to do a pump gas, E85, methanol, and then, like M5, some sort of nitromethane kind of mix. Might be outrunning my AEM. But the fuel pressure shouldn't fall off altogether. It should just start going away. Planning LQ9 pistons, truck Norris cam, 706 heads, hoping for some good mid-range power for an 80s Trans Am. You need to take a look and see a flat top piston and a 706 head in the 6-liter is going to be pretty high compression, I think. Test with 706 heads and your low buck truck with the LS car intake. Okay. I don't think we have the early, I don't know if Westech has those anymore. I don't know if they have like an LS1 intake manifold. I think they got rid of a bunch of stuff when they were moving. I'd like to see it with 706 862's low buck truck and a Trailblazer SS intake manifold. See where it lands. I do have a Trailblazer SS intake manifold. I think mine was a Dorman, and I think I got a couple of them back when they were like, I don't know, $150 or something. I have the LQ4 with 706s and a sloppy stage 2 cam, Trailblazer SS, long tubes. I'd love to know what it makes. I guess 450, 460. I think that's probably a good estimate. 706 heads, low buck truck cam, and nitrous. Nitrous works with any camshaft, so whatever amount of nitrous we add, it's just going to add to whatever's there. I got some interesting comments on my post today on the camshafts, and one of them was, well, is this a turbo cam? Is this a nitrous cam? Is this a, whatever kind of cam? My answer is like, yes, it is all of those. Building old school roots. I have videos up where we ran a 671 on an LS already, and we ran on a 383 stroker. Twin M90s, old school blowers make inlet air temperatures absolutely ridiculous from what I've seen. The 671 is not going to be terrible, especially because you're not going to be running, 20 pounds or whatever. The other thing that happens with the 671 is you have fuel on top of it, which does a good job in charge cooling. And then you could, if you wanted, sandwich an intercooler between the blower and the lower manifold. And as we saw, what would be cool is put a 671 on top of a high ram with a tick intercooler. And then, because then you'd have the runner length of the high ram too, and not just the ultra short runners that we know hurt power. I'd also like to see it with a larger cam, a 219, 243 heads, a Trailblazer SS to compare to the smaller cam and the 706 heads. Okay. I kind of think I know what's going to happen there. Both of those are going to push power production higher in the RPM range. I base cam choice on your data for my 4.8. TSP Chopacabra, that's a good one. Since it died, the 5.7 already had the truck Norris. So I'm going to go to Facebook Marketplace and sell the Choppy. You shouldn't have any trouble selling that camshaft. I mean, I think that's a pretty popular camshaft, especially after that Richard guy did his test. Nitrous CFI versus nitrous carb on a 6-liter. What would you think is going to be the difference there? How much ever nitrous you add it's going to add that much power. The one thing I will say is I don't like to add a whole bunch of nitrous going through a long runner manifold, not particularly an EFI manifold. Most of them are, but going through a truck manifold, it's hard for the fuel. It's not bad for the nitrous because it's gaseous, but the fuel, it's hard for it to get evenly to all the cylinders. And so it doesn't work very well. A carbureted manifold usually is a little bit better at that, although having run 802s on a lot of these things, they're not great. Liquid propane as a fuel to the nitrous jet of a fogger or plate. I wouldn't have any idea how to jet that. Currently working on placing the LQ4 in my dad's Silverado. It's just a work truck build. Good, Jet. Lots of those. I've sold lots of the low buck truck cams to work trucks. They just want a bit more, and this adds a lot. I mean, it adds 60 horsepower, but it's not a 230 or a 240 cam. It's not killing it. You do stage builds, get the parts guys to give parts, then auction or raffle it off to raise money for the channel. Before you swap heads, can you do stock 317 heads, just different cams and intakes? Yeah, I've done 317 stuff, but I certainly can do that, and we could see. I was thinking the same on the 243 and 799s. Put together my LQ4. So we know what just changing the head does, because we've done that individually. We know what just changing the cam does, because we've done that individually. And so we kind of know what's going to happen. But it's all good stuff. I have a couple sets of 799s. I put together my LQ4 5 years ago. It's 2001. You went 65 over? And so you could put 6.2 pistons in it? Did you ever check to see how much cylinder thickness you had? For a 48 head gasket and flat tops and 65 over and 706 heads? It's a lot of compression. 220, 224, 115 minus 4. Yeah, that's Milo. He's barking. He just wants to know where people are. One of your favorite cams work okay. The 469 with 317 heads. The camshaft doesn't care what kind of heads are on it. The camshaft will do what the camshaft does. But yeah, I have videos up where we run 317 heads with 469 cams. I'm pretty sure I did. Liquid propane needs a flashback fitting on it. Let's see. Scrolling back. Liquid propane. Okay. I want to say he tested it. It was 508 horsepower. I have run. I don't know if I did. When I did the LY6, I ran 799 heads, and I also ran 706 heads, and I also ran LS3 heads. But I don't know if I ran the three. I have to go back and look. I don't think I ran the 317 heads on that 6-liter. I did run 317 heads and compare them to LS3 heads, but that was actually on a 6.2. As much nitromethane as you can. Yeah, 78, 76 turbo, 243 heads, Trailblazer SS intake, and run it. Okay. Started out, well, a single 78, 76, we could easily top that out with a 6-liter. Started out with Summit Stage 2 low lift truck cam, was on par with a sloppy Stage 2 cam until 5,000 or so, and the sloppy Stage 2 pulled better, probably because the Summit cam is only 522 lift. It's not because of the lift. It's definitely going to be because of the duration. How much less duration is that truck cam? Because it's probably not 228 at 50, which is what the sloppy Stage 2 is. Is it possible to load the dyno below 2,000 at part throttle, simulating a towing situation? We could, but I don't know why you would. And honestly, I don't understand where you would be at 2,000 RPM, like at wide open throttle. You wouldn't ever be that. And if you're at part throttle at 2,000 RPM, like you're cruising down the road, that's not really that much torque. That's really easy to do. But we're going to load the dyno at 2,000 at wide open throttle and let it go. We could go less than that. The dyno will easily do that. But there's just no need to do that. You're never at 1,500 or something at wide open throttle. If you are, you need to shift. You need to be in a lower gear. Tune port, yeah, tune port definitely adds torque. Test some AFR Enforcer heads against the 243s and ported. I don't have any ported 243s. I'd like to see the same building as the guy above with the 219 cam that you sell and 243 heads in a 60 with Trailblazer, a 60 with Trailblazer SS intake manifold. Where can I buy that cam? You can send me an email and I have the cams available. Like to see you run the LS head. Yeah, no, that's that is not going to happen. But the heads being CC matched for compression so people can stop bringing it up. Nope. I will never do that. LQ4 or 706 heads and NSR cam tests would be cool. Why an NSR cam? We've tested the NSR cam a bunch of times. And we know what it does. See how far you can push the bolt-on only idea? 1.9 rockers. Does somebody offer 1.9 rockers for an LS? Fast intake headers and every other thing you can pull out. Do heads and camshaft count as bolt-on stuff? Different cell lifters. Yeah, I don't know that there's enough there's not really enough motor to do that, I don't think. Because I don't think you're going to see any difference in lifters other than if we go from a standard travel lifter to a short travel lifter, it should come out like the test that I did on push rod length. Because that's what happened. When we put a push rod that was too long, we made our standard travel lifter into a short travel lifter by compressing a lot of it. And so what you're doing is getting rid of the aerated oil in the lifter, and that's what short travels do. And that was worth power. Just beat the headers if they don't fit. Yep. I say odd intake series, roots, tune port, cross ram. 408 stroker was 723 heads. Are those the rec port heads? 6-liter world. How do torque converters with looser stalls unlock certain cam potential? At what point does this happen? What if you don't? On the reason that you would put a higher stall converter so that you would be in a more favorable area for the camshaft where it starts making power. So like if you put a big camshaft in and it loses power compared to another cam, let's say up to 3,000 RPM. Well, if you have a 2,500 stall, you're in the area where it's making less power. So it's not going to perform as well. And this is a simplified version of what a converter does. If you then put a stall converter in that goes up to 3,000, where now those two cams are at least making the same amount of power, or maybe the bigger cam is making a little more power, now you have more acceleration rate. And if you're doing that from the sweet spot to where all the way up theoretically that the bigger cam makes more power, you should have more performance. The combination really likes timing, responded a lot when it got what it needed in the mid-range. Yeah, there's an amount of timing that the motors will make best power at. And you just got to, on the dyno, we just ask it and it tells us. Didn't you already do an LQ4 with the Truck Norris and 706? I did. You can only get so much torque on a stud bolt before you'll warp the head and block. I agree with that. Cross ram listed here locally in Tennessee for 800. Are you talking about the cathedral port cross ram, the one that Holly did? I have tested that, and it does add lots of low speed power. How much nitrous do you add normally? It depends on how we've run 300 shots. On those, we added way late in the RPM range because it was just a junkyard motor, and I didn't even change the ring gap on it. So it was, every time we did a 300 shot, we had our fingers crossed. It eventually broke the motor, but it would do a few before it broke something. But you can add it. Some guys add it like as soon as they leave the line. I don't normally do that. We normally run it like at 3,500 or 4,000. Make a cross ram for the LS. Yes, the Holly makes a cross ram dual plenum, and then Speedmaster had one also. Edelbrock had one for the LS3, and I think Harrop or somebody, one of the Australian guys, have one, and then also Performance Design has a cross ram. I've done a lot of research injecting gases. Check out a David Vizard video, I'm sure, on water only injection for extreme compression, extreme boost. This will be interesting to see. The WAS, your motor didn't get hurt. That's good. It's forged, and we let off immediately, seeing the wideband peg lean. Yep. We see a lot of stuff that happens when they come into chassis dyno stuff. Clogged filters, not enough voltage going to the pump. The pump's not big enough. the regulator gets a hole in the diaphragm. You know, there are a couple of things. Clearance problem. I do an LS6 intake manifold. 4-inch flat tops with a 706. That's a lot. I would think it is. I need to go to Wallace Racing and do the calcs on that, but just dropped out. Log even shows the O2 sensor reading dropped to 0 when it won't full throttle. Check regulator and it's working. Dash 6 AN fuel line. Tank was full, so it's not sloshing. Which is better, an LSA supercharger or a Ford supercharger on the LS? Which Ford one are you talking about? How much torque and horsepower can you gain with a dry sump on an LS? I don't know. I've never tried like a daily, like a real dry sump on versus a wet sump. So I don't know what the gain is. 242-inch Toyota V8. Did you have a question about that? Yes, everybody hit the like button. Do a stock LQ4 with just a cam and twins. I think this would hit about 75% of what people do is just a cam and boost. Yeah, I have lots of videos up like that. Truck plus cam and an LQ4. I can run both of the cams in the LQ4. We could just run those both with a, you know, even with a 317 head. We've run both of those cams already, but so we know what they do. Have you tried DNJ pistons? What do you think? What's DNJ? I don't think I have. In HP tuners, how do you make Gen 3 knock sensors work on Gen 4 side of the block location? I can't get any knock at all, even raising or lowering the global knock tables. Is the harness compatible? So I don't do HP tuners, so I don't really know if anybody else here can help him out. Tim, what's going on? Holly Hiram plus the 671 blower kind of makes me think of the David Visor. Yeah, that's what I was talking. I'm not David Visor, David Freiberg. That's what I was talking about when he ran the big block. I got a ported Trailblazer SS going. I'm gonna build. Cool. I swapped out an intercooler with my LQ4 from a small intercooler to a large front mount. Went from boosting 1 psi to 8.5 psi. It was a GT45 turbo on it. Adding springs to the wastegate didn't add boost. So how small was the other intercooler? And did it have a leak or something? Because I've never heard of anything like that. And what I would have wanted you to do would be measure the boost like right after the turbo, between the turbo and the intercooler, to see if there's boost there and then there's not boost after it. And then you could go, okay, well, the intercooler is just restricting everything. Maybe the intercooler, maybe that intercooler is all clogged up inside. And so it's not doing anything. And if it is, and you're not getting any flow, the motor's not making any power, so it's not going to produce any boost because it needs exhaust energy to do that. And to get exhaust energy, it needs power and flow. It needs to flow. Scrolling. Okay, the 5.7 L6 timing map isn't all that great. Take a look at a 99 Corvette A4 map. Part throttle timing and part throttle tuning seems to be a lost art. Does Nitrous have greater gains under boost? Yes and no. When I've run Nitrous on boosted stuff, it almost always changes the boost. So the added gain that you're getting is from the increase in boost. But if we add a 100-shot, like for instance, if we have a centrifugal supercharger and we add a 100-shot to a centrifugal supercharger, it'll add 100 horsepower, just like it does NA, at least the ones that we've tested have. Have you done a Big Bang 6.2? No, I don't think I'd do that to an aluminum 6.2 motor because we know that they're not very strong. I don't run a 6.2 aluminum motor like an LS3 or a 6-liter LS2 or an LS1. We don't run those aluminum blocks much past 1,000 horsepower. 30 likes in 30 seconds. Nice. So there are some reasonably priced boosts for my 5.4, a Vortec, a Harrop supercharger manifold intercooler, and a turbo kit minus a turbo. Which one? They're all similar money. That's up to you. I supply the data and then you get to choose. So if you look at the Ford Racing or the Ford video I did, the modular Ford video, which is right up your alley, you can see the test that I did where I compared all of these forms of boost. So I ran turbos on it. We ran a Vortec on it. We ran the factory Eaton supercharger, and I also ran a Kenny Bell. So you can see what they all do. You can see what the boost curves look like. You can see what the power curves look like. Spoiler alert, the turbo makes more power at any given boost level because it's not driving the blower. So it gets that back right away. The stock LQ4 243 heads, mill 30 off, 5-layer gasket, the chopper copper cam. That's good. 5.4 is stock, 10.5 to 1, Boss 290. I like that intake manifold. High compression or just flat top pistons with Mills heads for the right torque. No matter how you get the compression, it's going to be beneficial. So you could do it with a flat top piston. You could do it with a smaller chamber. You could do it a couple of different ways. You could do it with all of the things affect it. You could do it with milling the deck so that you get it at 0 deck. You can change the chamber size like on a 706 head. You change the piston, you can change the gasket thickness and not just the gasket thickness. A lot of guys forget about this, but the bore diameter of the gasket too also changes the compression. Not sure guys would talk about towing at low RPM. If that's the case, you need to downshift. It is. I understand the want, because when you first roll into the throttle, that I understand wanting more power there. I get that. A lot of that is converter and tune. And so there's a lot of power to be had from that. Camshaft is not going to do that. It's not going to add that. Compression will definitely add that, but only if you have the tune correct. How's the BTR? I'm thinking stage 3 truck cam, doing a 4.8 versus a 6.0. Question, is it too much cam for a 4.8 for the street, or is upgrading to a 6.0 more worth it? In my opinion, I wouldn't put a stage 3 or a stage 4 truck cam in anything. I don't think it's a good choice. Lots of guys like it because it will have lots of chop and it's a truck cam. But for me, a truck, especially a daily driver, would have a stage 1 truck camshaft in it. Or even better yet, it would have from a BTR thing, it would have a Truck Norris camshaft in it. I don't think there's any better choice for that kind of driving than a Truck Norris cam. This cam from Idle would not pull over 3,000 RPM in my 488 truck motor. Mike, I'm trying to scroll back and see what cam you're talking about. And I don't see it, so I don't know which cam you're talking about. Oh, okay. Say the 248 cams. So if it's 248 advertised, if that's what it is, that's pretty small. How much power can factory fuel systems hold up to? The factory fuel rail will support a lot of power. The other things in the fuel system will not. The injectors will not, and the factory pump will not. What's the weakness of a Mopar 5762? A lot of guys seem to think that it's and I don't know what you're trying to do. Are you trying to turbocharge it, or what are you trying to do? A lot of people think that on the Hemi that it's the crown thickness on the piston, that there's not enough meat in the piston between the top of the piston and the first ringland. That's what they think it is. 723s are rec ports. Rec port heads are good. A factory rec port head makes more power than any factory cathedral port head. It's just softer down low. It does have a big chamber, almost equivalent to the size of the 317 head. So it's bigger chamber, and so lower compression than a bigger port and a bigger valve and all that stuff. All of those things contribute to make it not as good down low. Richard, can you test a ported truck or ported TBS intake manifold? I don't have either one of those, and I'm not the guy to port it because I don't know what's out there in the industry. Like, I don't know what guys are doing to that to make it better. We tried a ported LS3 intake manifold, and I've tried a couple of ported fast manifolds, and just haven't really seen anything. Do decap injectors work? Yes, they do, but you have to go through a whole bunch of them to get them to flow the same, even just as a static flow. But what a lot of times guys don't do with these decapped injectors is they don't like flow them to find out what the flow curve is, like what the slope is of these injectors. Are they all the same at every given duty cycle? And a lot of times they're not. It is a cheap way to do it, and it does work, and we've used them a lot of times, but you're not going to decap 8 of them and have them all be the same. You got to go through like 12 or 16 of them to get 8 that match. And to do it, you have to do it and you have to, make sure that you test them all on a flow bench to get them to make sure that they're right. We want to know what's the best torque 6-liter rec port cam. Well, the best 6-liter rec port cam would also be the best 6-liter cathedral port cam, because cams are going to work the same way. Apparently, Speedmaster makes 1.9 rockers for LS engines. I don't know why you'd want them. Yeah, I mean, maybe for a test on the dyno, but it's not something I would do like as a modified thing and have it in a car. LQ4 30 over flat tops, 243 milled 30, 51 compressed, 249, 246. That's a you have a reverse pattern, a reverse split cam with less duration on the exhaust side. Brian, go to Wallace Racing compression calculator, and put in all your data, and it will tell you exactly what your static compression is. Is it a 249 256 duration at 50? Because a 249 246 would be a weird kind of camshaft. Just picked up a small block Chevy 400. Will any LS counterparts work like the heads or cam or even the crank? Not on a small block Chevy. They're completely different motors, completely different engine families. Why do some piston ring manufacturers ask for more ring gap when a motor is made for marine use compared to street use? Because of the amount of temperature that you put in the ring and the amount of time spent at under load, and even at wide open throttle on a marine motor is way more than it is in a typical automotive application. So you think about when you're driving your truck, how much time you spend at wide open throttle. When you're in a boat, you're at wide open throttle a lot. When you're towing skiers and stuff, and you're under a lot more load. The marine motor is loaded a lot more, and so they usually put more ring gap in them. We used to run a Freddy controller on the Ickle Rover for progressive nitrous. It worked, and it wasn't a sudden hit. Yeah, progressive nitrous, where you're pulse width modulating the solenoid, is a good way to go. LS3 plus a roots blower plus cam plus tuning, AFR, and water meth testing. Oh, so that's what you're wanting to be done? Get a Bosch 147 PSI 10 bar temp pressure sensor for your fuel pressure regulator. I know Speedmaster makes a cheap set of LS9s. Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. Let's see. Here we go. I've done a good bit of testing at the track with my LQ9 from mild to something wild. 317s to 243s, deported 243s from stock manifold, deported Trailblazer SS to high ram, deported high ram. Cool. I have a big bore flat top 706 combo. Works great, and it loves timing. I'm not kidding. It's in a 3600 power with a 2600 salt and two 273s, and it never stops pulling. Well, we would know. Are they stock 706s? So, and what camshaft do you have it in? And what do you mean by it loves timing? Because it's going to make peak power at about 29 or 30 degrees of timing. Unless it's carbureted, then it might want a couple of degrees more. 12.3 to 1 with a turbo. So you're running good gas in it then. I'm thinking about an LS Boxer build. Remove the top mechanism and long run, or its trumpets like a Can-Am car. Okay. Fuel testing with all the cam swaps. What's the difference between a C5R timing chain and production chain? I don't know. Does the C5R have the good like German chain on it? Nitrous cools your intake like an aftercooler does, or better. It actually doesn't. I mean, it does. Nitrous helps on an NA motor, and you get charge cooling from that. But and I've done this test, and those videos are up. But on a turbo application, like if you're adding 100 horsepower with a nitrous, but you're adding 800 horsepower worth of non-intercooled boost from a turbo or a blower, there's way more hot than there is cold. Even though the cold is very cold, there's just not enough of it to make a big change. When we did that test, it only cooled the charge temperature by about 30 degrees. It wasn't nearly as good as having an intercooler on it. He said, I only make the content. You decide what's best for you. Yeah. I don't make content. What I do is testing. And so I show you the results, and then you get to choose. So if you want what a centrifugal blower does, then you get to do that. If you want what a turbo does, you do that. Roots blower, et cetera, et cetera. We've got a 6-liter BTR hot cam with LS3 heads. Intake on 25 degrees of timing. Can I spray 100 shot without pulling timing on 91 pump gas? I don't know how close you are at 25 degrees right now on pump gas. How close are you to detonation? If I was putting 100 shot in, I would pull 4 degrees under the nitrous. Because on the street at 200 degrees of water temperature, and I don't know what your air temperature is, it's going to tolerate much less timing, and especially on 91. I have a Kia Forte 1.6 GDI with bad cams and head. Can I replace these parts with a 1.6 regular engine? I don't know. You could do an engine swap, I'm pretty sure, but not knowing enough about those and how the harness is going to hook up and what the ECU is going to do. So about my reasoning price boost option, it's worth keeping my Boss 290 intake and choosing the turbo. I guess that's the easiest upgrade. I would do it. I would do that just so that I could keep that Boss intake, because I think that that's really cool. Everyone wants more torque. I'm thinking about less than my 5.3 S10. Is it a transmission issue or a rear end issue? Are you worried about something? Oil pump gears are a must on a Hemi. My 488 stroker truck motor had a lot more power than the stock 427 truck cam. It had 390 lift. The second cam I installed had 515 lift on the exhaust side, and had coil bind. Truck valves are shorter. When you're changing the cam, what I would ask about is what is the duration change? Because we've done lift changes, like we did the test that we did recently was on the Truck Norris cam. We did the Truck Norris, which is 550 lift, and then we did the NSR version of that camshaft, which is 500 lift. So it's a 50 thousandths lift change, and it was about 6 horsepower. I use Ford Cleveland valve springs to avoid coil bind. On the 5.7 Hemi, the pre-Eagle versus the Eagle has almost 2 times the ringland thickness, and they seem to hold up a lot more power. Plus, the Eagle connecting rod is slightly better. See, there's Aaron coming in with the Eagle info. LQ4 request for 600 horsepower, piston change, LS3 heads, carb NA would be interesting. 600 horsepower from a 6-liter is very hard to get. We've done it before, but it took everything. It takes really good cylinder heads. We had airflow research heads on it. It took a flat top piston with valve reliefs, these were aftermarket. These were CP, I think, or Carrillo. I think we had their Bullet series stuff. We had the airflow research heads. We had a big camshaft in it. We had the fast intake manifold, and the Holley seemed to get us fairly close to 600 horsepower. Maybe a single plane Super Victor, but probably the high ram with dual quads on it would get us to 600 horsepower, but it takes all of that. And I don't think you're going to get there. We're not going to get there with a LQ4 short block. On the port, my Ford 5.8 upper and lower. Took me 22 decaps to get one set of 8 for a stock appearing drag car. Sometimes they don't cooperate. I guess my point is with the cam selection, sure helps to compare the specs from a cam you have used with a cam you are considering for said engine. Yeah, if you having data is always better than not having data. Welding a portion of a rec port head to decrease chamber size help with low end torque. If you did it correctly and you increase the compression will help. It will help power everywhere. So it will help low speed power. It'll help mid range power. It'll help top end power if you didn't throw off the effectiveness of the chamber by welding it. Because the chamber design itself is very important to power production. It's really easy to make that not good anymore. Case in point, the 317 chamber versus the 799 chamber. Even if those were the same size, one of those chambers makes more power than the other chamber. The 799 is better of the two of those. Should I be nervous running 18 pounds of my Pro Charger? 7 liter with a cam might be reaching the limit of the aluminum block. Is it an LS7 block? Ever test bleed down or anti-pump up lifters? What's a bleed down lifter? Are you talking about a short travel one? Please do a carb with a dual plane with a few different cams. Chuck Norris Red Hot. I have tested. I have we did the 5.3 with carbureted intake manifolds, and the camshafts do exactly the same thing that they do EFI. So the change that you see on the camshaft, if one of them makes more power up top and less at the bottom, it does that with those intake manifolds as well. Camshafts are not specific to that. There isn't a camshaft that all of a sudden magically likes carbureted intake manifolds. That's not the way that they work. How much power do you think an LQ4 iron block can handle? We know at least so far it can go 1540 because that's where we've gone to. That was an LY6, but an LQ4 or an LQ9 block will do that also. And guys have gone beyond that with the iron blocks. They've run way more boost than I have. How much power do you think? Oh, okay, we got that. Have you actually gotten to try the speed of air pistons on an LS? I have not. The ones with the dimples on them. I haven't tried the dimple pistons. I haven't tested them back to back versus anything. Well, a 383 kit work on an iron 5.3. Yeah, that's what we normally do. You can do you're just using the block. So an iron 5.3 or a 4.8 block, they're the same block. And you bore it out to, we'd go to 3902 or 3905 on the bore. And then you put the 4-inch stroke in, and then you have a 383. Velocity stacks and intake mods before the throttle body. Yeah, we can do that. I've done radius entries on intake manifolds on throttle bodies primarily. And as you might imagine, the way that works is the radius entry, it improves airflow. So if you're in a situation where the throttle body itself, well, the motor combination wants more airflow and to produce more power than the throttle body can supply, and you improve the airflow with a radius entry, then you can make more power. I've also tested, which this is a Helmholtz resonance thing, so the length and diameter of different size in essentially air inlet tubes on an LS, and didn't see a lot of change from those. I saved a Carcraft magazine from the 80s with all the automotive math formulas to figure out with a calculator before they came out with all of the apps. I have the auto math book, which has that stuff. So if you want to calculate compression and that stuff, but the Wallace Racing thing is they have a displacement calculator, a compression calculator, a speed calculator, tire size, all of those things. So it's a really, really good resource, and you just put in the data and it does everything for you. It's kind of nice. China's making LS carb intake manifolds. Yeah, there's lots of those. Marine engines can get very good thermal efficiencies. Would love to see a 6-liter test stock rec port heads versus CNC ported stock rec port heads. So I've run rec port heads versus ported rec port heads. I've done it both on. We did it on an LS3, so it was a 6.2. We did it on a stock motor, and the ported heads were only worth about 10 horsepower. And then we've also done it on, a cammed one and stuff where it's making more power, and it's worth more. And the ported ones are worth a little bit more. And then we did that on a really big motor, we did it on a 468, and then I can't remember. I think we tried a couple of LS3 heads. I know we tried LS7 heads on the 495. So what you need is a lot of motor, because you can get CNC ported rec port heads that flow enough to support 750 plus horsepower. But how many 6 liters do you see, NA 6 liters do you see that ever make that much power? Like none. So it's not a deficiency of the cylinder head. The cylinder head can certainly support that power. We know, because we've made that on bigger motors. But you don't have enough motor to take advantage of what the head has to offer. Long rod, short piston versus standard length. So a rod ratio test. What's your go-to timing chain for small block forwards? I just have, in all the ones that we did, we would just put a double roller comp chain on it. Stock 706 heads. Okay. That's a topic that needs a lot of discussion. Yeah, whenever we go down the long rod theory. Appreciate you hanging out with us. 30 degrees of timing. It loves it. I think people are afraid of compression and timing. No, not if you have octane. I was off. It's 242, 248 exhaust. That makes more sense, because having a reverse split like that is weird. I've seen the guys that try to use that for like turbo stuff. The Cam Motion guys are good. They know what they're doing. Why do you think they didn't make a truck version of the LS7? I feel like it would have been much better than the 6 liter. Because the LS7 is really, really expensive. And so that's why they wouldn't have done a truck version of it. And they could achieve their goals with the displacement that they had. Saw a guy do a DOD delete using truck wheel bearings. Have you heard of this? Yeah, anything that you can jam into the opening under the lifter valley, the valley cover, anything you do to seal that works just fine. I put a cam 636, 226, 256 on an LS3 TVS at 13 PSI. The thing that would worry me about that camshaft is stability with that much lift and that duration. I would worry about the load profile. But a 226 cam will work with a blower, just like a 236 cam will, or a 216 cam. That kind of a weird combo. 4030 LQ4 3900 stroke 823 heads. Okay. 398 cubic inches, 10.3 dual plane, 750 carb. I'm thinking a 226, 232 on a 108 for torque. If you're thinking about torque, why did you get the rec port heads then? But yeah, that will work. Worried about traction. It's got a 4L80 and an 8.5, 10-inch rear. Okay. I think a long travel van is cooler than 4-wheel drive monster trucks. Read about the bleed down lifters. Are you talking about like the Rhodes lifters? I would like to try those. I haven't ever run a test on those. Even way back with the small block Chevy stuff, I haven't run a test on those. Which aluminum heads would you run on a 5.3 for all-around performance? That's too vague of a question. You need to tell me what you're trying to do, and because for a lot of cases, I just keep the stock ones on there, and they work really well. It depends on how much power you're trying to make. Factory LS7 block with ring gap. Are you running the titanium rods and stuff in there? What do you know about LSX knockoff block? I don't know anything about that. I haven't heard of that. Dimples make golf balls fly farther. They do that. Have you ever posted 6-liter results with a truck Norris cam? Yeah, that video is up. 12 more likes to get to 100. Actually, 7. We're only 7 likes away, so people be smashing that like button so we can get over 100 likes. Can a 421 LS 6-liter build with 18-degree dart heads produce the same power as a small block. What are you doing to make it 421 inches? And where are you getting 18-degree dart heads for an LS? I'm not sure I understand. AFR LS3 Mongoose heads, how are the decks for big boosted applications? They have thick decks. Running a dual plane because of your testing. Nothing out there torques it down low. The dual plane works really well. The 227, 243 cam, that's not going to be as torquey, but I think it could benefit from less exhaust duration and a later EVO point. That's not the, if you're wanting torque, that's not the cam I would pick. It's pretty wild. We live in a time where 1,500 horsepower is what most guys that are local Mexico pad are running. That is a lot of power. Bring up the dual plane because they were great at building low speed torque. Guys, I have a 5.3 LMG engine, which can do recommend on stock lifter, springs, and stall converters. If you want a stock stall converter, you should put my LOWBUCK truck camshaft in it. That's the cam, a Chupacabra, a Truck Norris cam. That's the go-to cam for daily driver stuff, the guys that want power. For low speed 6-liter testing, try smaller primaries, 1 5/8. I have never seen a set of 1 5/8 LS headers, but maybe they exist. I just searched the Wallace Racing calculator. There's a lot of good stuff there. I use that all the time. Getaway, what's going on? The dimples have been proven to only be effective on small objects. 4-digit power is a reality. Is the 06 and up truck manifold the same as the Trailblazer SS? I guess. I don't know. I don't know that I've never taken one off of a. Is the 06 and up truck intake manifold? Are you talking about a rec port version of that, or is there an 06 and up cathedral port version that's that? Because that's what I want to know. LSA blower versus Ford blower on an LS. It depends on what Ford blower you're talking about, because there's like 3 or 4 or 5 different Ford superchargers. There's M90s, there's 112s, there's 122s. Maybe there's only 3. Maybe, I thought that there were more than that. But which one of those are you talking about? The LSA blower is a 1.9. So they make Ford blowers that are bigger than the 1.9. So you would think that the bigger blower could support more power. There would be things that you could read into that, and then also for the Ford blower, you're going to have to adapt that onto the LS. So what happens when you do that? What's up with the commercials tonight? I don't know. I know that we're getting into the season where I make more money, which is good, but also YouTube charges. They have way more ads because their ad revenue goes way up from now until Christmas. Have you ever tested Rhodes pump up lifters? I have not. Todd, your cam is a 585, 219, 225, 1. I don't remember. I have to look and see. It's a 113. Why do you care about the cam? Is it working? Then you're all good. And you got boost, you're good. Was number crunching after running at the duct tape drags. I seem to be missing like 100 horsepower LY6, 469 cam, dual plane, 850 Holly. Carb sat for a while. You picked a 469 cam and a dual plane? What's the chances of it missing 100 horsepower from a bad carb elevation and maybe not perfect timing? Yes, all of that's possible, particularly the bad carb. Yeah, oh yeah, 100. We have more likes now than we have people because it is really almost time to go. I mean, it is really time to go. Should I do a how to get low speed torque series with a 6-liter? 90% saying yes, and you people that said no, you're worthless so-and-sos. I'll send you a link to the blog when I am about the camshaft. Okay. Yeah, just send me an email and if you have a question about it. Thinking about mostly about the bad air and the heat. I heard the DA was really high at that. Bought a carb, stripped all the screws. Lobe separation for Turk. Got to get that tight lobe separation angle. That's right. You're reading a report about the performance of an engine. What would you be wanting to read? I'm writing one for my thermodynamics assignment on a diesel engine. I don't think I've ever read one, so I don't know what you would be putting in there, and I don't know who it would be going to. It certainly wouldn't be coming to me. A link to the block. Apologize, I'm driving in unfamiliar lands. A 5.3 is definitely a cathedral port. They didn't make a rec port version of that. Not inexpensive, but I'd like to see a junkyard LS tuned into vintage dirt track sprint car engine. Yeah, that would be money, right? A 950 horsepower, 410 methanol burning monster. LS Cam Motion hot rod cam. That LS Cam Motion makes a hot rod cam? I know Brian Tooley does. Gen 3 truck intake is cathedral. That's right. But a Trailblazer SS is also cathedral. But they also make an intake manifold that looks like the Trailblazer SS, but it's rec port. It's the LY6 intake manifold. I'm not sure if the 0653 is rec port. Yeah, it's definitely a cathedral. It can't be otherwise. Dual plane 706 and truck Norris on a 6-liter would be interesting. Tight LSA cams with lower duration seem to be the ticket. Okay. The 6-liter 706 heads and truck Norris cam and a 1-ton. You want more power cheap. Do you have headers on it? I said no because wide open throttle is how everyone should learn to drive. Hope hot riding stays for years to come. It will. Well, there's a wicked shepherd and Texas healer. I think a steak can't handle. They do like steak. We need a video on an LQ9. I don't have one of those. And on that note, it is time to go. Thank you guys all for showing up. If you haven't already, go check out the turbocharging for beginners. Let me know what you guys think. And I'll see you guys all tomorrow. And I guess we're officially done with September. Tomorrow's October. And then Halloween. And Thanksgiving. And then Christmas.